So 2 years ago, I bought a PS4 in anticipation of the Spider-Man PS4 game, which just recently came out and is exactly as awesome as I was hoping it would be. I mean, I don't love sneaking through art galleries as Mary Jane or connecting circuit breakers or whatever, but overall, the game is pretty amazing. I even love the weird Nike sneaker Spider-Man design, but I think the design that I like the most is actually the Rhino, who just so happens to be one of my favorite B-list Spider-Man characters. I don't really know why. He's not a particularly interesting guy. He's just a big thug in a rhino suit. But regardless, I've been sort of obsessing with him since I saw his design in the trailers for the game, so I decided to make a video about the history of the Rhino. But in doing so, okay, for this video, I was doing some research and basing some of the video off my general nerdy knowledge of the character, but nearing the end of the research, I popped onto the Wikipedia to make sure I wasn't missing anything important or essential about Alexei Sitsevich or Alexander O'Hearn, the two versions of the Rhino I'm familiar with, and I found that the Wikipedia description of the Rhino's history is pretty hilarious. Now, I don't know if you know this, but old comics are pretty ridiculous. Not that I'm saying they're bad, but there are a lot of leaps in logic, and they're just really goofy, and, they weren't as obsessed with making everything make sense. It was kind of just, hey, let's have this guy dress up in a big rhino suit and fight Spider-Man, because that would be cool. And reading that insane comic history summarized in very direct, humorless Wikipedia description is just kind of gold, because they give you so little context about what's going on. They just kind of give you the facts of the situations and the main plot beats, and it's really kind of funny. So I'll quickly go over the character's history, then pretty much I'm just going to tell you the stories through the Wikipedia entry for the Rhino, with some context from the comics, but I'm going to give you the context after the fact, because it's pretty funny hearing the story without the context. So back to basics for a second. Rhino was created by Stan Lee and John Romita Sr., not to be confused with John Romita Jr., who is also a famous Marvel comic artist who's well known for that style that everyone either loves or hates or is impartial to. I kind of like it. The first comic I ever read was that Spider-Man Ezekiel Spider Totem arc that John Romita Jr. did art for, where there was some cult and a bunch of spiders got together to make a big man made out of spiders or something. Anyway, it was great stuff. Or it wasn't. I don't know. I don't remember. I'm not rereading it for this because it has nothing to do with Rhino, and this video is all about the Rhino. So let's get back to Rhino, who, also known as Alexei Sitsevich, usually, unless you watch the TV shows, in which case he's sometimes not, or if you read the Ultimate Comics. Anyway, Alexei was a thug who worked for some scientists, which, every scientist needs a thug working for them, right? I mean, I guess in a comic book universe, that makes a little bit more sense. If I were a scientist in the Marvel universe, I'd get a thug to protect me, because villains are always kidnapping scientists and making them build stuff, or I guess the scientists often just end up becoming supervillains themselves, like, most Spider-Man villains are. But anyway, one day, the scientists go, hey, we're going to give you some artificial skin that'll give you super strength. Also, it has a rhino horn on it, and it'll have weird little closed rhino eyes on it. And I guess he didn't think to say, hey, will I be able to take this skin off? Because no, he can't. He can't just take it off whenever he wants. And I guess we just glaze past all the questions of how does he pee? How does he sweat? Anyway, the scientists put this super rhino skin on Alexei Sitsevich. Then I guess Rhino decides he didn't like that he couldn't pee or something because he destroyed their science lab. And this is where we get into the Wikipedia stuff, because without contests, it's all great. It just jumps straight from him escaping to him going to kidnap J. Jonah Jameson's kid. But the best part is the reason. It's because Lil Jameson, who's an astronaut at this point, was in space and got some extraterrestrial spores on him, and I guess Rhino wanted the spores, or someone hired Rhino who wanted the spores, but that seems like a big ordeal. Do you really have to kidnap a whole man just for the equivalent of space dandruff on his shirt? I mean, you couldn't just steal the spacesuit instead of, stealing a whole man? That seems like a lot of effort to go through for some little space dust. Anyway, Spider-Man frees Lil Jameson, beats up Rhino, and gets him locked up, but then Rhino just gets out again 2 issues later, and for some reason still decides to go and kidnap Jameson. He's just really committed, I guess. Also, this second time, Spider-Man comes at Rhino with this acid that can melt the Rhino suit off him. So, when Rhino was arrested, nobody tried to get the skin off him? I mean, I know prisons generally have problems of not being genuinely good for rehabilitation and are just establishments that make our lawbreakers even more bitter and unlikely to ever become well-adjusted members of society, but come on, someone could have figured out how to get that Rhino suit off him in jail instead of going, let's just let him keep his super strength and we'll try and sedate him 24/7. I'm sure that'll be fine, which it obviously was not fine because he escapes 2 issues after he was put away. But yeah, he escaped from prison. Spider-Man, melts the suit off him, then just knocks him out. Then Rhino just lives out his prison sentence. Like, the wiki just says he does that. I don't know how long that was. I guess it wasn't a very long time. I mean, how long should someone be locked up for dressing up as a rhino and kidnapping someone to get their space dandruff? I don't know. That's a decision best left to the suits in Washington, I guess. But Rhino serves his sentence, then gets out. Great, good, fun. And then immediately after he gets out, those scientists whose lab he smashed are like, hey, we've got another suit. To which I assume the Rhino was like, nah, get out of here. But then they said, wait a minute, you can take this one off. To which I guess he was just like, yeah, all right, the prison system meant to rehabilitate me is garbage and I'm still a bad dude. So let's put back on a Rhino suit and go kidnap somebody. But this time, it's Bruce Banner, aka the Hulk. I don't think Hulk was quite as overpowered back then as he is now, but that is still some brash arrogance to think, hey, I should kidnap the strongest dude on the planet. What could go wrong? Anyway, everything goes wrong. Hulk just knocks him out, and Rhino's left in a coma. And that is the end of the Rhino. Nah, I'm kidding, but he is in a coma for a while, and he only gets woken up by a Hulk villain. Rhino is woken up by Leader, and Leader wants Rhino's help, but he doesn't really need him to do much. He just kind of wants Rhino to be a guard for him, because Leader's gonna go mess up Hulk's wedding. See, Bruce Banner, who becomes the Hulk, is getting married to Betty Ross, who you all know she's played by Liv Tyler in that one movie, and she has that famously unapproving dad, not Steven Tyler, that's Liv Tyler's dad, Betty's dad, General Ross, who eventually becomes Red Hulk for some reason, but that's... Man, comics are weird. Anyway, they're going to mess up Bruce Banner's wedding to Betty Ross. And Leader's gonna shoot this laser at Bruce Banner to make him turn into the Hulk so that he'll kill Betty Ross's dad, General Ross. So they're at the wedding, and, right away, Rhino just decides to attack the Hulk, as opposed to going with this great plan Leader had come up with. Then there's a lot of changing sides that gets a bit confusing, but basically then there's a spaceship explosion, which there in the Wikipedia description there was no establishment that anyone had a spaceship, but apparently Leader had a spaceship because it said that it exploded. And in that explosion, the Rhino is blasted and gets put in a coma again. But this all gets even better, and this is where I really love the Wikipedia description, because it just says, Leader, who was paralyzed after a previous encounter with the Hulk, finds and takes mental control of the still comatose body of the Rhino and attacks Hulk. So at this point, Rhino has failed twice against Hulk, but in the follow-up to this, somehow, and the wiki gives me no context, but Leader got paralyzed at some point, but the wiki just states, oh yeah, by the way, this is a thing, the Leader's paralyzed now. Rhino is still comatose, and Leader, who is supposed to be a genius, takes control of Rhino's body and makes this comatose corpse of a guy who's already lost to Hulk twice. He makes him fight the Hulk again, but while he's in a coma. But this guy has lost to the Hulk twice. It's not working out. Plus, he's been through a lot. He went to a heartless prison system, then was in a coma, then was in another coma. Leave his body alone, you bastard. Then somehow the battle leads to an alien world. That, the wiki literally just states that very matter-of-factly. I mean, I guess they've mentioned spaceships at this point, so we can probably assume they hopped on a spaceship while they were fighting, and they're just blasting off into space. And then it just says, I guess they get to that alien world, and the fight ends. The Leader just flees. So now Rhino has been shot into space, fighting a guy he's never been able to beat, and he's just unconscious in space with the Hulk. But I guess the Hulk is a good guy, because right after this it just says, and I'm quoting here, Bruce and the unconscious but now recovered Rhino travel back to Earth via a rocket. What exactly does unconscious but now recovered mean? Is he recovered from his coma? Or is he just recovered from being body snatched? Is he still in a coma? Because I would not call that now recovered. He hasn't really recovered from anything. Anyway, there are more ridiculous Rhino adventures. The next one is fun because it's Rhino and Abomination fighting Hulk, and the cover of this comic is just the two of them running at the Hulk from opposite sides, and according to the Wikipedia entry, Hulk beats them by just jumping out of the way and letting them headbutt each other, which is funny because in most Spider-Man games, to beat Rhino, you just get him to bash his head into stuff and then you punch his butt for a while he's busy. So I guess, weirdly enough, even though Rhino's built to smash stuff with his head, his one real weakness, besides, not being as good as the Hulk, is that he's really bad at headbutting stuff. But yeah, this has been the weird animated history of the Rhino. If you like this kind of stuff, subscribe to my channel. I'm going to be doing more fully animated videos like this. I've got some animated fight scenes in the works that I'm probably showing on screen right now. And, yeah, you might like my stuff if you enjoyed this. Alright, thanks for hanging out. Goodbye.